Hi, and welcome to this AI in C# video and a little mini series about reasoning. So, LLMs can do reasoning, thinking, they call it different things. But what is it and how can we control it? So, let's do a small intro and then there will be a separate video on how OpenAI do it, Google do it, and Anthropic do it. But what is reasoning and why does it matter to us? Well, reasoning was introduced into the O1 model back in September 2024. So OpenAI was the one who did it. And it was sort of an involvement of, at that moment in time, people were getting a lot of hallucinations from AI. And someone began to say, if you tell it things step by step, you have probably heard that if you have been around for that, it thinks better. And this is kind of an evolvement of that by moving such a think step by step into the model itself. Because reasoning is a little like having a human having an inner dialogue. They call it chain of thought in the technical terms. But to have a question before answering instead of just saying what comes to mind. And we know it from ourselves. If we just are asked a question and we immediately need to answer, or by mistake answers, we might say the wrong thing. While if instead we go in, let's say, what's the capital of France? We might know that by heart. But if we want to think a little more about it, we might come up with a better answer in the end. And that is what reasoning is all about. How much of this inner dialogue is shown to the user when it comes to, for example, ChatGPT and Google and so on, is varies much from model to model. Some of them showing all of it. DeepSeek was very famous for doing that. Some of them only show a summary, and some of them it's configurable in their APIs what they do. So reasoning is a good thing if we think a little about what we answer. We often get a better answer. But there's some drawbacks. Sometimes reasoning is simply not needed. In this case, we just ask hello, and if the LLM needs to think a lot about what hello means, what it is in cultures, and so on and so forth, just saying hello, that can lead to overthinking, and overthinking is wasting the user's time and the developer's money, because the reasoning an LLM can do counts toward the output tokens. It's still going back and forth. It's like doing a chat loop where you have multiple conversations back and forward. Because this inner monologue happens, it's still predicting next tokens and someone needs to pay. So it's output tokens, and those are the expensive ones. So we didn't really want an LLM to think so much about just the question or message hello. While if we asked it a deep question or deeply technical questions, yes, we want to do it, because else the answer that it would just give back quickly might be wrong. So it's a balancing act when to reason and when to not. Some models are slowly getting better at internally understanding when to think hard about something and when to not. That is called the auto reasoning. Some models don't do it, some do it better, some do it worse, and so on. But if we know upfront that we don't want to think a lot about this, because we know the kind of scenario we are in our code, it's better to tell upfront how much it should think. And we can control that. So in this mini series, we're gonna first dive into OpenAI in part 1 to see how you control it there, then Google in part 2, and Anthropic in part 3. And the reason why we need to check out and do it in different models is because this is not an industry standard yet, and they do it in various different ways. Even Google does it in 2 different ways now, slowly going to the way of how OpenAI do it. And for that reason, I'm breaking it down into 3 parts, because it's also what is called breaking glass, because Microsoft Agent Framework cannot really take a decision on how reasoning is done when not even those 3 big ones cannot choose by themselves. So it's a more low-level setting, and it can be difficult for someone new to Microsoft Agent Framework to actually figure out how to even set these reasoning. And for that reason, we will go into 3 separate videos on it after this. So see you in those.